So, geotrig outline lesson 22. Today we're going to talk about absolute values. What is an absolute value? How far away from 0 is the number? So, we're just going to call it the distance from 0. The absolute value, guys, is the distance from 0 because we all know that distances cannot be negative. When we put a negative on distance, it's because I'm going backwards. That's what we kind of think of when there's negatives. Now, when we say distance from 0, it means if we have a number on a number line, how far away on that number line it covers a positive distance one way or the other. So, that actually should be down here. Should be there. Okay, so that's an absolute value. So what does it mean when I ask you the absolute value of 5?
5.
It means 5. How far away is 5 from 0? It's 5 units, 5 whatever, away from 0. What is the absolute value of negative 3?
3.
It's 3. So what are we really doing? Not switching it. Or keeping it the same. So at times we switch it, sometimes we keep it. So basically you just make it positive. You always keep it positive. So when we take the absolute value of things, we make it positive. What's the absolute value of 0?
0.
It is 0. The distance from 0 to get to 0 is 0. You're not going anywhere. Now, as my other class had said, just use your brain. That's one way to solve these. If I ask you to solve the absolute value of x equals 5, what are the values of x that will give me a 5 when I take the absolute value? 5. Because absolute value of 5 is 5. Also, though, negative 5. Because if I take the absolute value of negative 5, it's still a distance of 5 away from 0. Someone asked me, can I have plus or minus 5 there? The answer is yes. Right? We're showing both answers. Just like when I took a square root. We did put plus or minus representing two answers. Now the question that comes to mind here is, now we don't have just x inside that absolute value. Looking at the next example, we have x plus 2. The absolute value of x plus 2 is equal to 8. So, what's one solution to that? Subtract 2. Okay, what do you mean? What do you get? So 6 plus 2 is 8. The absolute value of 8 is 8. So, one of the answers is 6. What's the other answer? Is there another answer? Negative 6. Negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. And absolute value of negative 4 is 4. That's not 8. So in this case, you guys can't get mixed up with the fact that it's always going to be plus or minus the number. So that's where I would say be careful there where you cannot use plus or minus. Okay? It's because you can't just say there's only one answer and it's just the opposite, positive and negative of that answer. In this case, there's slightly something different. What number, when I add 2 to it and take the absolute value, I get 8. Negative 10. Because negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. And the absolute value of negative 8 is 8. So the other one is negative 10. Now, you guys are like, hey, I just used my brain. I'm just thinking of numbers, adding, and just guessing and checking somewhat, right? I'm going to put this one up at top here. What happens if I did something like this to you, though? So 7/4 x minus 3/8 equals 4/11. There's an answer to this. Just use your brain, as Third Hour said.
Yeah, I'm using my calculator now.
But here's the thing, guys. I don't want to just use my brain and guess and check. We could find it by guessing and checking. It's going to take a lot more work. Probably getting common denominator and all that. But there's a rule here that we are using. Let's do another example. Let's be a little bit easier, just like the last one. X minus 3, the absolute value, is equal to 7. What's one of these? Because before, one of my other classes, they're like, oh, look, I can just subtract 2 and add 2. And I got this thing. They subtracted the 2 from the 8 on the bottom problem, and that's how they got 6. But then I'm like, well, how did you get negative 10? And they couldn't come up with the reason why, necessarily, other than, oh, but if I take 8 plus the 2, I get a 10, and I just have to make it opposite. I don't know if we can just say that. But wait a minute. What's one of the answers for the x minus 3 equals 7? 10. If one of these is 10, what's another one? Negative 4. Why negative 4? Because you end up with negative 7 and you take the absolute value. So how the heck do we get 10 and negative 4? Now they're thinking, oh, wait a minute, to get x by itself, I have to do what? Add 3, and add 3, I do get 10, right? Take a look at the bottom one with x plus 2. If I add 2, I get, or subtract 2 in that case, I get 6. So wait a minute. Possibly, one of my actions or rules that I have to use is get rid of the absolute value and solve it. That seems to give me one of the answers. So even if that's 7/4 minus 3x, if I just get rid of the absolute values, I have one answer. And just solve it. So I'm going to switch here. Rule number 1. Remove absolute values. Value. And solve, right? If I just remove the absolute value, leave it as is, and just solve, I have at least one answer. But the thing is that absolute values have usually 2 answers. So, what's the other rule? What's the other rule? How did I end up, that's how it gets me to 10, that's how it gets me to 6, just removing the absolute values and solving. What's going to get me the negative 4 or the negative 10, which are the other answers? Well, think of this. The thing inside the absolute value could be 2 different values to get 7. 2 different values to get 8. And those were 7 and the absolute value of this number is 7.
Okay.
What is what? What is it?
7.
7 and negative
Negative
7. So if I take the absolute value of 7, I get 7.
Yep.
If I take the absolute value of negative 7,
You get 7.
I get 7.
Yep.
So the thing is I set the first thing inside equal to 7, which remove the absolute values.
So x minus 3 equals 7.
So we get x minus 3 equals 7.
Yep.
The other one is I want to get a negative 7 inside, so I take x minus 3 equals negative 7.
Yep.
And I can solve it there. So the second one here for our rules, we still remove absolute value. Okay. And, that's bad and set equal to negative value. So let's take a look at what this would look like. That means x minus 3 equals 7, getting rid of the parentheses, or the absolute values. And x minus 3 is equal to negative 7. And if I add 3 to both of these, what answers do I get? X equals 10, x equals negative 4, and that is what we had. Okay? Same thing below. X plus 2 equals 8, or x plus 2 equals negative 8. Now, I'm going to clean this up. We got words on that last slide here. Let's put some, kind of like a little formula. What if I started off with an absolute value of ax plus b? Just very generic, kind of like a little rule here, right? The absolute value of ax plus b. What if I said that equals c? According to rule number 1, one of my answers, I just remove the absolute values and I'm good to go. Yes? So what would that look like? ax plus b equals c. Or I remove the absolute values and set it equal to negative c. And if I solve those individually, I have my answer.